Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer. So glad you're here. Today I have another guest artist video for you. I apologize for having two in a row, but I haven't been able to get in my craft room, but I promise the next video, which is already done, will be from me. But today is from Jaycee Gaspar, who is hands down one of my favorite crafters. I am his biggest fan. I have a card from him on display in my craft room for years now. Well, he is a scientist, that's like his normal job, and an amazing crafter. And the way he pulls the two together is fantastic. He is incredible at explaining the creative process as he goes. And I think you will really, really enjoy listening to him today. What also is important about this video is I get a lot of questions about the different Altenew subscription options and the bundles that are available without subscription. And he is going to show you all of the different options today and card examples with them and lots of techniques. So Altenew has several different subscription options. You'll see examples of those today, but if you don't want to subscribe, you can also just buy the product separately, and I have both options linked below. Of course, the subscription option is great because there's savings attached to it and some other perks, but I just thought it'd be good to show you all the different options, and really, Jaycee knocked it out of the park with this video. So I hope this answers some questions, but regardless, a lot of the techniques he talks about are things that you can try with products you have, so I hope you walk away feeling inspired. Personally, the last three cards blew my mind. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with Jaycee.
Hi there everyone, my name is Jaycee Gaspar. I'm a full-time scientist and part-time card-making content creator. I'm incredibly honored to share 6 of my favorite ways to creatively approach handmade card designs. Special thanks to Jennifer for letting me share these techniques with you all. In true Jennifer fashion, I'm giving you many examples for you to try for yourselves. These techniques are suitable for many crafting stashes and budgets, and fortunately the Altenew Marvelous Monthly subscription series gives you 6 different opportunities to find what benefits your crafting needs. Let me show you what I mean. This is the Altenew Mini Delight subscription. It is their most affordable choice. In this bundle is a 3x4-inch stamp set with its coordinating die. New for April 2023 is the Mini Pattern Power Mini Delight. The Altenew packaging always shows you an example of how to use their crafting products. However, the purpose of this video is to show you other creative ways to approach your stamping materials aside from copying what you see on the packaging and make it your own. To start, I have an A2 panel of Neenah Solar White in 110 pounds in the corner of my stamp wheel. Then I'll pick my inks to stamp this pattern. My favorite way to make a rainbow palette is just to use some solid primary colors. I have Red Cosmos, Pocket Full of Sunshine, and Glacier Caves mini ink cube sets from Altenew. I'm going to partially ink this first iteration of my pattern in Coral Berry on about a 1/3 wedge of the stamp. Then with a small ink blending tool, I'm going to pounce and diffuse this ink on the photopolymer stamp. This diffuses any hard edges of ink. Then I'll return my flip plate to the stamp wheel stage and stamp the image. I'll repeat this inking and diffusing technique until I get adequate saturation on my cardstock. I'll clean the stamp and leave it in my flip plate for the next color, Fresh Lemon. I'll slightly overlap this yellow color on another 1/3 wedge of the stamp and ink diffuse stamp until I get a smooth yellow gradient. On the last 1/3 wedge of the stamp, I'll use Caribbean Sky to create my green, blue, purple gradient for this layer. So that's the first layer stamped. The next step to this pattern is to rotate the stamp 120 degrees and align to the first layer. Now that my stamp is in place, I'll use the same ink, diffuse, and stamping technique for the next 3 inks. The next darkest red value I'll use is Ruby Red, followed by Maple Yellow, then Persian Blue. To complete this cube tessellation, all I need to do is rotate the stamp again another 120 degrees to this empty space. I'll keep things simple with this layer and stamp it in Obsidian pigment ink. I also stamped the Hello Sentiment stamp in Obsidian pigment ink onto the same panel. I'll use the coordinating die to cut the Hello Sentiment and the hearts from black cardstock. As for the main cube tessellation rainbow image, I fussy cut it very easily. To put this card together, I foam tape mounted the rainbow pattern to the center of my folded note card base. Then I foam mounted the Hello Sentiment to the center of the rainbow cube. Then finally added the 3 black die-cut hearts in this asymmetrical fashion to break up the symmetry of this card. My creative approach with mini stamps is to pack as much visual impact as you can into a small image. In this card example, that means disrupting a repeating pattern with an array of color. Up next is the Altenew Dynamic Duo subscription. This subscription is the perfect pairing of a 3x4-inch stamp set with a coordinating stencil. For April 2023, I have the Treat Yourself Dynamic Duo. In the stencil pamphlet, we see how this Dynamic Duo is intended to be used, but let's approach this bundle differently. In my stamp wheel, I have another panel of cardstock and the balloon stencil from Treat Yourself. I'm using the sticky mats in the stamp wheel to hold my cardstock and stencil, as I'll use this panel as my card front. I still have my primary inks from the first card, so I'll use them again for this simple card. With a mini ink blending tool, I'll create this rounded appearance to the balloon in ruby red. To make the orange balloon, I'll mix maple yellow with coral berry. I'll offset the next balloon and use maple yellow. To make the green balloon, I'll mix citrus burst with Caribbean sky. I'm going to jump to the purple balloon so that I know my spread of images is centered on my card front. I'm mixing coral berry with Persian blue. Then I'll make my last balloon in Persian blue. In the Dynamic Duo Treat Yourself stamp set, these little outline and solid images are meant to fill in or outline the counter of the letters A, P/R, B, and D. But we will use them in an unconventional way. With Obsidian ink, I'm partially stamping the smaller semicircle image from the letter B layer to make a left and right eye to each of the balloons. Then with the PR solid layer, I'll stamp the open mouths with Obsidian ink. To dress up these balloons, I'm using one of the Altenew fine liner pens in the 02 nib to create ties and hanging thread. Then giving their eyes a little reflection with the Altenew must-have gel pen set in white. I also used white to give the balloons a little highlight detail. I'm going to add some confetti to this scene by suspending the dye ink from my ink pads in water and using a brush to add an array of splatter. I'm using coral berry, maple yellow, and Persian blue. Then with a T-square and the edge of the stamp wheel stage, I'll align my sentiment so that it is perfectly horizontal. And then the final touch to the balloons is a little blush. I used an artist marker to add little dots to their cheeks. Then after adding this panel to a folded note card base, I have this balloon scene with the Dynamic Duo Treat Yourself. I love adding drawn details to stenciled images. I think it adds a personal touch and extends your crafting stash. And with motifs as simple as this, you really can't go wrong. Build a Garden and Craft a Flower are both the same price if you subscribe to the Marvelous Monthly series. Let's start with Build a Garden Esplanade Flowers. I love the recent evolution of the Build a Flower series. I get so excited every time I see the newest bundle, which always contains a 6x8 stamp set, coordinating stencils, and one mini ink blending brush. I'm modeling my flowers after belladonna lilies. after seeing them lined on the North Drive of Shoreline Highway in California. So to start, I'm stamping the A2, B2, and C2 layers in cotton candy. Then I'll partially ink the same layers in Peach Perfect, but just in the center of the flowers. Both of these inks come from the 4 Scoops Crisp Dye Ink family from Altenew. Then with the coordinating Esplanade Flowers simple coloring stencils, I'll follow the layering guide found on the stamp set trifold and ink blend these amaryllis motifs. All I have to do is line the etching on the stencil with other reference points found on the stamped images to perfectly layer the stencil. I'm using the Altenew sticky mat to hold down my stencil and cardstock while ink blending. The ink I'm using in the center of the flower is Mango Smoothie. Then I'll transition this color to cotton candy on the outer edges of the petals. So that's how easy it is to color this amaryllis image with Build a Garden. I'll repeat this 2-tone ink blending for the rest of the Esplanade flowers. For the stamen layers, I'll use Peach Perfect to add a very faint impression. The English Country Garden Artist Alcohol Marker Set contains the same 4 scoop colors as the dye inks. I'll use this to my advantage to add freckles to the flower centers with Cotton Candy Artist Marker. And then with Milk Chocolate, I'll finish the anthers to the filament. In my stamp wheel, I have the leaf layers in D1, E1, F1, and G1, and I'll stamp those leaf outlines in permanent black crisp ink. And I'll stamp the same ink in D2, E2, F2, and G2 to finish the veining in the leaves. Back to the simple coloring stencils, I'm using Moss and Olive from Tropical Forest Crisp Dye Ink family to fill in the solid hemispheres of the leaves. For the leaf edges that curl up, I'm using a light gradient of Bamboo from Tropical Forest Crisp Dye Ink. I want to add some solid details to these leaf veins and disrupt the constant linear pattern. I'm using Milk Chocolate Artist Marker to fill in random open spaces between vein lines. Some of these subscriptions have an add-on option to add coordinating dies, so while this Esplanade Flowers add-on die set does not routinely accompany the Build a Garden subscription, you have the choice to include the steel dies for crisp cuts. Instead of fussy cutting these images, I will use the add-on die set since I have it. Then I'll arrange my amaryllis cluster radiating outward like how I've seen them in my own home, and pop the leaves in to help frame the shape. I learned the Glad Press and Seal trick right here on the Jennifer McGuire channel. It saves me so much time when arranging my die-cut cardstock. It also helps me plan my sentiment placement if I want to stamp directly onto the cardstock panel. I'm using the Be Happy scripted pairing sentiment to stamp below the flowers on a panel of cardstock with Obsidian pigment ink. Then I'm using a mix of glue and instant dimension foam tape to the back of my die-cut images. I finished this card with jet black ink spray and a water brush for fine splatters throughout the bouquet. To counteract lines, I used dots and I filled in repeat lines with solid shapes. These are just 2 simple ways to create some interesting variation in your stamped bouquet, featuring the Esplanade Flowers Build a Garden bundle. The Craft a Flower series is similar to the Build a Garden in that each month Altenew features a unique flower to make for your paper crafting projects. For April 2023, I have Zinnia layering die set. Assembling these die-cut layers is as easy as following the innovative keyhole and arrow alignment cuts. In the end, you end up with this full petal flower with lots of texture. You can cut these images from Altenew's gradient cardstocks or bust through your pattern paper stash. I have the Exuberant paper pack. I love that each of these colors has a solid and its spatial negative pattern, like on this orange triangular pattern paper set. I'll use this to my advantage when making a paired zinnia bouquet that loosely resembles the Benary's Giant Blend zinnia seeds I recently purchased for my garden. To spare you the motion of all the die cutting, here are all the layers in Craft a Flower Zinnia. I cut the center layers in black, gray, and brushed gold cardstock. I also cut the leaf images from this repeat slash line teal patterned paper in the Exuberant paper pack. Back on my stamp wheel, I have the keyhole layered flower on my sticky mat to give me a little bit more grip while ink blending. I'm using a mix of paper bag and caramel toffee from the Summer Afternoon Crisp dye ink family to deepen the centers of the flowers. Then with the arrow layered zinnia, I'm using caramel toffee, warm sunshine, and butternut to color these petals. On the leaf layers, I'm using Galactic Stream from Sweet Dreams Mini Ink Cube Set to deepen the base of the leaves. To assemble the layering zinnias, all I have to do is start with the number 1 layer on the bottom and work in numerical sequence up, applying glue between layers. I just need to ensure that the keyhole image is visible through the layers. However, for this flower, it's not too important to get it perfect. I finished the center of the flower as shown on the Altenew die set packaging. Then I assembled the bigger zinnia bloom in the same manner, this time with the arrow alignment cut. For this die cut flower, you can curl the petals for a more lifelike appearance and realistic shadows. I love the height the crafted flower gives on flower die cut cards. There isn't much to assembly on this card. I used a sentiment and its die, which you will see later in this video, and embellished this card with jet black ink splatters. As much as I want to keep pattern papers pristine and beautiful in my craft room, I find that layering die cuts gives me beautiful and unique effects when paired with layered floral sets. So I encourage you, if you're like me with pattern papers, to use them with your craft of flower dies. I'm always surprised with the beautiful results they make in flower cards. It took me a little bit of time to invest in my hot foil system, but once Altenew came out with the Spark Joy series, I knew I had to get both for a perfect pair. For April 2023, I have Festive Flowers hot foil plates and its coordinating simple coloring stencil. You get both with Spark Joy subscription. This bundle is based off Cattleyas, one of my favorite genus from the Orchidaceae family. Off camera, I hot foiled the Cattleya cluster twice from rose gold foil from Altenew. I won't be using this panel on its own, so I'm not worried about the overfoiling I got on this image. On my sticky mat grid and one of the simple coloring stencils, I am mixing a gradient of pink sand and Dusty Rose fresh dye inks from the Woodland Escape ink family. I'm following this gradient on all of the petal and sepal layers. Then on the labellum layer, the part of the image that has the foil dots, I'll use fuchsia and magenta crisp dye inks from the Spring Bouquet Mini Ink Cube set to create a vibrant image. Then for the leaves, I mixed a gradient of limeade with fresh leaf. So for the inspiration on this Cattleya bouquet, I used the Cattleya bicolor as my inspiration palette for my flowers. Some reference images I found also had speckling, so I pressed a little bit of redwood fresh dye ink to a stencil so I could add ink splatter to the petal layers. And then for the other foiled image I have, I did everything the same with ink colors and blending. Except I added a touch more fuchsia to the base of the petals to replicate the other Cattleya bicolor images I found. I fussy cut both foiled ink blended images and began arranging them on my card. I love large clusters like this because I get to make framed arrangements on cards. I try to get creative with these cut flower groupings to occupy as much of the card front as I can. I foam mounted this floral frame onto a cardstock panel, and I did not waste any of these foiled images on this arrangement. My tip for you is to see a different way to arrange your large floral cluster images. You'll be surprised with the overflowing and dazzling results you can achieve. Speaking of overflowing, at the top end of Altenew's subscription services is the Craft Your Life Project Kit. This kit will always contain the layering stencil, 6x8 stamp set, embossing folder, and coordinating dies. You will be busy with this subscription bundle. And April 2023's Engraved Motifs project kit is no different. Some of the embossing folders supplement the kit's overall theme, while in some cases, like April's kit, one of the stamped images perfectly aligns with the details of the embossing folder. Let's use this to our advantage. I gold powder heat embossed the outline that coordinates with the embossing folder and one of the other engraved motifs. I used the Frosted Foliage Fresh Dye Ink family in Eucalyptus and Silver Sage to get this green gradient on the leaves. Then I used Toasted Mauve on the centers of the petal stencils. Then on the outer petals, I mixed a gradient of Dusty Rose and then Redwood for this antique jewel tone palette. With the steel dies included in the project kit subscription, I cut both heat embossed images, but for the unstenciled one, I'll add some texture to this motif. Lining up the outline of the engraved motif to the embossing folder is just as easy as looking through layering stamps or aligning stencils. Believe me, this image aligns perfectly with the embossing folder. And once I run this through my embossing folder sandwich on my die cutting machine, I'll end up with a beautifully textured die cut. To further enhance this, I'm returning the embossed die cut back to the raised side of the non-text side of the embossing folder, locking the image in place. Then on the flat side or the text side of the embossing folder, I'll apply antique gold pigment ink from Altenew. I thought this gold matched closely to my gold heat embossing. I'm letting the ink pad capture the raised details of the embossing folder around my die cut image. Then I can run this through my die cutting machine again, relief printing the pigment ink onto the die cut. Now I have raised texture from heat embossing and the embossing folder, as well as a shiny gradient from the pigment ink. I ended up having to fragment this arrangement just like the previous card. If I end up covering the majority of an image with another one, I cut it off and see if I can use it somewhere else on the card, and it happened to work very well for this ornate design. I used one of the brush lettered sentiments with its coordinating die to finish this card. If you get the opportunity to mix textures like embossing folders, heat embossing pastes, sequins, foils, etc., I recommend pairing these textures for areas of interest on your card that don't overbear your focal image or sentiments. The project kits are perfect for balanced card designs. So those are my 6 card examples on creative ways to personalize your handmade cards. Depending on your crafting budget, space, or time, there is sure to be an Altenew subscription that fits your crafting needs. You'll be sure to find a way to incorporate these simple techniques into your handmade cards. Let me know what your favorite technique is from this video. Most likely you already know the skill, but need ways to make it your own. Special thanks to Altenew for connecting Jennifer and I for this very special video. And of course, thanks so much to Jennifer for letting me share my creative passion with you all. I hope to see you all again very soon.
Okay, I bet you're like me and you need to pick your jaw up off the floor after watching those cards. So inspiring. If you want to see more from Jaycee, I will have links on where to find him on the internet below in my description, along with links for all the different products that he used. At the end here, I'll have links to a couple other related videos if you want more inspiration. I thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you soon with another video, this time from me. Thanks for watching.